Hey class, today we're going to be talking about transversal equations. And with transversal equations, we're going to use these four examples to help us get an understanding of how to set up and solve transversal equations. But before we begin, there's some things we need to know. And the first thing is dealing with congruent angles. Congruent angles are angles that we're going to be setting equal to each other. So to identify whether we have a congruent angle or not is if we have alternate interior, alternate exterior, corresponding angles, and vertical angles. So if we can classify it as either one of these four, then it's automatically going to be a congruent angle, and we can set the equations equal to each other. Now we do have a different one where it's supplementary angles, and supplementary means it adds up to be 180 degrees. And the categories that follow under the supplementary angles are same side interior and same side exterior. So if we can identify it as one of those two, that means we're going to be adding up to be 180 degrees. The next thing is the steps that we're going to take. Step one is that we got to understand the question. If we can understand what it's asking for, we'll know how to set it up. Step two is that we're going to find the angle relationships that we can use to help us set this problem up. And step three is that we're going to set up the equation and solve. So now let's look at example 1. Example 1 says solve for x, and we're going to justify the setup. Okay? So if we look at example 1, in example 1, we're looking at 14x minus 4 in this corner, and then we have 80 in this corner here. Okay? So if we're looking at these two angles based off where they are, we're looking at what can be considered to be a vertical angle, okay, because they're right across from each other. So if they're vertical angles, they're congruent, which means we can set them equal to each other. So if we set them equal to each other, what we have is 14x minus 4 is going to be equal to 80 degrees. So let's solve this problem. We're going to take and split down the middle, giving us two sides. So we're going to take and move negative 4 by doing its opposite by adding 4. The positive and the negative 4 goes away because we moved it to the other side. We're going to bring down 14x. And then we got 80 plus 4, which will give us 84. And then we're going to take that 84 and then we're going to take and divide it by 14 on both sides. And we will do positive 84 divided by positive 14. We find out that the x is going to be equal to 6. So the value of x in this problem is 6. So let's move to our next example. In this question, it's still solving for x, and then we can justify the setup. So if we're looking at this problem, what angle relationships do we have here? If we notice that they're both inside the parallel lines, and by them both being inside the parallel lines, one here, and they're on the same side of my transversal, this is considered to be same side interior angles because they're on the same side of my transversal inside my parallel lines. So if they're on based off that and they're same side interior, that means we got to set equal because they're supplementary. So if we set, because they're supplementary, we got to set them equal to 180. So if we solve this problem, this one's going to be 14x minus 3 plus 85 is going to be equal to 180 degrees because they are supplementary. So if we do that, we got to combine like terms. So we got negative 3, positive 84. If we combine those two, what we get is a positive 82. We'll bring down our 14x and our equal to 180. We're going to split it down the middle. When we split it down the middle, we're going to solve. We're going to take the positive 82 and move it to the other side. Once it crosses that line, it becomes its opposite. So I can put a negative 82 here. And this one can go away. I can bring down my 14x. And then 180 minus 82 is going to give me 98. Then I can take and divide by 14. And the value of x for this problem here is going to be 7. So because this problem was same side interior supplementary, we had to set it equal to 180 degrees. So now let's move on to our next example. In this example, if we look at the problem and we start our setup, solving for x again. So if we solve for x, we look at where our angles are. We have one angle outside of my parallel lines. We have another angle inside my parallel lines, and they're on the same side of my transversal. That is considered to be corresponding. And corresponding angles are congruent, which means they have to be set equal to each other. So we're going to take this problem and set it up. We're going to put 18x plus 4. It's going to be equal to 17x plus 11. Now if we take those two, just like we've done in the past, we're going to split it down the middle. We're going to take the variable from the back side, move it to the front, and once it crosses that equal sign, it becomes its opposite. So it'll be a negative 17x. We can mark out the 1 in the back. 18x minus 17x give me 1x. I can bring down my positive 4, and I can bring down my positive 11. Now we're going to take and solve it. We're going to move the positive 4 to the back side, and it becomes its opposite, which is a negative 4. I can mark that one out, bring 1x down. And then we got positive 11 minus 4. So if I take 11 minus 4, that's going to give me 7. And then I can bring and divide by 1. We'll find out x is equal to 7. So the value for this one, for x, is going to be 7. Now let's complete our last example. In this example, same thing, we're solving for x. But we have to first pay attention to our setup. So if we look at our setup based off where everything is, we got one angle outside of my parallel lines, and then we got the other angle outside of the parallel lines, but they're on opposite sides of my transversal. So this is considered to be alternate exterior angles. And alternate exterior angles are congruent, meaning I can set them equal to each other. So that means 28x minus 2 is going to be equal to 26x plus 6. So we're going to solve the problem like normal, split it down the middle. Giving us two sides, we're going to take the one from the back, move it to the front, but when it crosses the equal sign, it's going to be opposites. So that's going to be a negative 26, and I can mark the one out in the back. 28x minus 26x is going to give me 2x. I can bring down my negative 2 and my positive 6. From there, I can bring over my negative 2 to the back. So when it crosses the signs, it's going to cross the line, it's going to switch. I can mark out my negative 2. I can bring 2x down, and 6x plus 8, well 6x plus 2x is 8. 6 plus 2 is 8, and we're going to take that and divide by 2. We'll find out the value of x is equal to 4. And that is the solution to that equation. Alright, so what we just went over is parallel lines and transversals. This is the algebra, which is the equations. So based off the placement of the angles, it's either going to be congruent or supplementary. Remember, congruent means we're going to set them equal. Supplementary means we're going to set it equal to 180. So that's how we solve parallel lines equations.